Hello, I'm Dwight Skull from Skull RPG, and today we're going to be spending about 5 minutes talking about the lore and motivations of the Mind Flayer. Mind Flayer origins. Some sages have speculated that the Mind Flayers, also known as Illithids, come from the end of time itself, and that they have come back to the past to prevent their extinction in the future. During this period, they were the most powerful race in existence, controlling most of the inner planets and commanding vast empires in both the astral and ethereal planes that span multiple worlds. For some unknown reason, they came back into the past into different time periods and have settled into the Underdark in this time. They are trying to establish their empires through subjugating other races and experimentation. This is consistent with the fact that the Abyssals, with their racial memories, report no memory of the Illithids race beginning. Another theory is that the Mind Flayers are just mutated humanoids from the far realm or the outside. This is further supported when a group of Mind Flayers actually reach the far realm and return with drastically changed minds, bodies, and even goals. Mind Flayers hate it when you click the like button, so if you could help me out and click the like button below, that'd be very helpful to me. Mind Flayer motivations. The best way to think about Mind Flayers is to imagine them as evil scientists that are trying to shape all of creation to their demands. This means that every race they encounter is placed into one of three categories. 1, good for food. 2, good for service or slavery. Or 3, good to become a part of the larger Illithid race. So let's just break down each one of these. Food. Illithids need to consume the brain of an intelligent creature at least every 3 months, but the healthiest eat a brain every single month. Given that Illithids live roughly 125 years, that means that each Mind Flayer will eat between 500 and 1,500 brains in their lifespan. Now, when a Mind Flayer consumes a brain, they experience the memories and the emotions of the living creatures that they're eating. For this reason, Mind Flayers will not eat certain races unless they have to survive. They also favor surface-dwelling races like humans, dwarves, elves, and halflings, for example. Note, these brains have to be from intelligent creatures. They can't just eat animals. Servitude. Mind Flayers don't like to be alone, and it's rare to encounter just a single Mind Flayer. Instead, they are accompanied by 2 or more slaves that are mentally bound to them. The races that are enslaved this way are deemed not edible. These include ogres, quaggoths, troglodytes, and grimlocks. Also, Mind Flayers have been known to enslave entire races and breed those races for their evil purposes. Note that Mind Flayers are not physically powerful, so many of the enslaved races are used as physical bodyguards. In a fight, the Mind Flayer will use its slaves to fight for it, then it will use its psionic powers to attack any threats. How to become an Illithid. Mind Flayers are sexless, meaning there's no male or female in their species, and up to twice in their lifetime they will lay eggs from which the Illithid tadpoles are hatched. These hatched tadpoles are taken and put into the elder brain pool for the elder brain to feast upon. Those that survive 10 years in the elder brain tank are then used in a ceremony called Ceremorphosis. This is when the tadpole is put into the nose, the ear, or even the eye of the victim. Within a matter of hours, the tadpole has destroyed the personality of the individual, but it needs to keep the body alive. Over the next week, the body of the victim undergoes massive internal and external changes where the victim will become a Mind Flayer. This is so extraordinary that one won't be able to see exactly what the originating race was, whether it was a drow or a human, or even if it was male or female. Now, Illithids have experimented putting tadpoles in other races that don't meet the normal physical requirements required to create a Mind Flayer. This has led to creating a subspecies of Illithids called Ceremorphs, or Half-Illithids. Beholders, Chul, dragons, gnomes, lizard folk, and even ropers are examples of what have been created when Illithids don't use the more common races to create Mind Flayers. If you want to create a Mind Flayer, they use a human, an elf, a drow, a Githyanki, a Githrazi, a grimlock, a gnoll, a goblinoid, or an orc. Once the process of ceremorphosis has been started, it's almost impossible to stop it. But if one were to stop it, it's easier to stop it in the first couple hours. One simply needs to kill the tadpole inside the brain and then use a series of ever-growing spells to try to get back the person's personality, their memories, and everything else to heal them from this injury. The longer you wait, the more impossible it gets. DM tips. When using Mind Flayers in your game, remember the following things. 1. Mind Flayers are never alone. They have at least 2 slaves with them at all times. If there's a Mind Flayer slaver party going to the surface world, they will strike at night because Mind Flayers, like drow, have penalties during sunlight. And they will have a small band of Mind Flayers with about 5 to 6 slaves each with them. This means that this party could be anywhere in size from maybe 15 to 18, all the way up to 30 or 40 different creatures and races, all driven by maybe a handful of Mind Flayers. So number 2 to remember is that Mind Flayers need brains. They need them to eat, and they like to obtain brains as delicacies. They've been known to capture small bands, like whole tribes of halflings, as hostages to use as cattle. They take them underneath the earth, and they hold them in pens and drive them basically insane with terror because they like to feed on brains that have been terrorized. Also, they need brains to perform experiments on. And so they like to have a ready cache of brains that they can use either for eating or for experimentation. And finally, number 3, Mind Flayers like to experiment on biology. They will capture other races to create ceremorphs. But think outside the box. What would happen if a Mind Flayer were to put an illithid tadpole into a dwarf or other species, since dragons and ropers can also be changed into abominations? And that concludes Mind Flayers' origins and motives. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like, and we'll see you next time.